They messed with the wrong new girl. Maya walked through the front doors of Riverside High School with her backpack slung over one shoulder. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore basic jeans and a plain white t-shirt. Nothing about her appearance screamed special forces training or years of combat experience. She looked like any other 17-year-old girl starting at a new school. The hallways buzzed with typical teenage energy. Students clustered around lockers, sharing weekend stories and complaining about Monday morning classes. Maya moved quietly through the crowd, observing everything while drawing little attention to herself. This was exactly how she preferred it. Her father, Colonel James, had been reassigned to the nearby military base. Maya had grown up on bases around the world, but this was different. For the first time in her life, she was attending a regular civilian high school instead of military academy programs. Her parents thought it would be good for her to experience normal, teenage life before she turned 18 and made her own decisions about the future. What they didn't know was that Maya had already spent the last 3 summers in an elite youth military training program. She had earned certifications that most adults never achieved. Her hand-to-hand combat skills were deadly, her marksmanship was exceptional, and her tactical thinking had impressed seasoned officers. But here at Riverside High, she was just another new student trying to fit in. Maya found her locker and was working on the combination when she heard loud voices nearby. A group of students had gathered around something, and the noise was getting more aggressive. She glanced over to see what was happening. In the center of the crowd, 3 large boys were surrounding a smaller student. The victim was a thin boy with thick glasses who clutched his books tightly against his chest. His face was red with embarrassment and fear. "Come on, Danny," one of the bullies said with a cruel smile. "We just want to borrow some lunch money. You can afford it, right? Your daddy's a lawyer." "I don't have any money," Danny whispered, his voice shaking. The biggest bully, who had the build of a football player, stepped closer. "That's not what we heard. Empty your pockets, nerd." Maya watched the scene unfold. Most of the other students were either looking away or pulling out their phones to record what might happen next. Nobody was stepping forward to help Danny. This was classic predator behavior, and Maya recognized it immediately from her training. The lead bully grabbed Danny's backpack and dumped its contents on the floor. Books, papers, and pens scattered everywhere. Danny bent down to gather his things, but one of the other bullies kicked his textbook down the hallway. "Oops," the bully laughed. "Butterfingers." Maya had seen enough. She closed her locker calmly and walked toward the group. Her movement was fluid and controlled, though she kept her posture relaxed and non-threatening. "Hey," she said in a friendly voice as she approached. "You guys having a study group or something?" The bullies turned to look at her. The leader, whose Letterman jacket said Chad across the back, looked her up and down with obvious interest. "Well, well, fresh meat. You must be new here, sweetheart. I'm Chad," he puffed out his chest proudly. "My dad owns half the businesses in this town." "That's nice," Maya replied with a sweet smile. "I'm Maya, and it looks like your friend here dropped his stuff. That's so clumsy." Chad's friends snickered. They clearly thought this new girl was naive about how things worked at their school. "Yeah, real clumsy," Chad agreed with a smirk. "But don't worry about Danny. He's used to being a klutz, aren't you, Danny?" Danny was still on his hands and knees, trying to collect his scattered belongings. Maya could see his hands trembling as he reached for his papers. "Actually," Maya said, her voice still pleasant, "I think maybe you should help him pick up his things, since you're such a helpful guy and all." The hallway got quieter. Other students sensed that something interesting was about to happen. Chad's expression shifted from amusement to annoyance. "Listen, new girl," he said, stepping closer to Maya. "You seem sweet, but you don't understand how things work here. Danny pays his dues and everyone's happy. That's just how it is." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "Oh, I see. So you're like the unofficial tax collector. That's a big responsibility." Chad's friends laughed, thinking she was impressed. Chad himself seemed pleased with the description. "Exactly," he said. "I keep order around here, make sure everyone knows their place." "And what's my place?" Maya asked innocently. Chad moved even closer, invading her personal space in a way that would intimidate most people. "Your place is being friendly to the right people. Stick with us, and high school will be a lot more fun for you." Maya appeared to consider this offer seriously. "That sounds tempting, but I have one question." "What's that?" "What happens if I don't want to be friendly?" Chad's smile turned cold. Trust me, you want to be friendly. Girls who aren't friendly have a harder time here. Their lockers get broken into. Their car tires go flat. Sometimes they even have accidents in the parking lot. The threat was clear, and Maya filed it away for future reference. Around them, the crowd had grown larger. Everyone was watching to see how the new girl would react to Chad's intimidation. Maya seemed to shrink a little, which made Chad smile wider. He thought he had one already. I understand, Maya said quietly. Then she bent down to help Danny gather his remaining books. Here, let me help you. As she knelt beside Danny, she whispered something in his ear that no one else could hear. Stay behind me and be ready to run when I say so. Danny looked at her with confusion, but he nodded slightly. Maya stood up with Danny's books in her hands and offered them to Chad. Maybe you could give these back to him as a show of good faith. Chad reached out to take the books, but instead of handing them over, Maya let them drop to the floor again. Oops, she said with an innocent smile. Butterfingers. The hallway erupted in surprised murmurs. Nobody talked to Chad like that. His face turned red with anger. You little, Chad started to say, but Maya cut him off. What, I'm just being clumsy like Danny. Isn't that what you said, that he's clumsy? Chad's friends moved to flank Maya, trying to box her in. She noticed their positioning but didn't let it show on her face. Her training had taught her to always be aware of multiple opponents and escape routes. I think you need to learn some respect, Chad said through gritted teeth. I'd be happy to learn, Maya replied sweetly. Why don't you teach me? What Chad and his friends didn't realize was that Maya was maneuvering them away from Danny and toward a more open area of the hallway. Every step looked natural and innocent, but she was actually controlling their positioning like pieces on a chess board. Fine, Chad said. Let's start with lesson 1. He reached out to grab Maya's arm, probably planning to intimidate her with his strength. This was exactly what Maya had been waiting for. The moment Chad's hand touched her arm, Maya moved. Her reaction was so fast that most of the watching students didn't even see what happened. 1 second Chad was reaching for her, and the next second he was on the floor holding his wrist and groaning in pain. Maya had used a simple but effective joint lock, applying just enough pressure to cause pain without causing permanent damage. To everyone watching, it looked like Chad had somehow hurt himself. Oh no, Maya said with concern in her voice. Are you okay? You should be more careful. Chad's friends stared in shock. Their leader was on the ground and they weren't sure what had happened. The new girl was standing over him looking worried, like a good Samaritan who had witnessed an accident. What did you do? One of Chad's friends demanded. Nothing, Maya said honestly. He grabbed my arm and then fell down. Maybe he slipped. Chad struggled to his feet, his face red with embarrassment and anger. He could feel everyone watching him, and he knew his reputation was being damaged. You're going to pay for that? He whispered to Maya. Pay for what? She asked loudly enough for others to hear. I didn't do anything, I was just standing here. Several students nodded in agreement. From their perspective, Chad had tried to grab the new girl and had somehow ended up on the floor. Maya's movements had been too quick and subtle for untrained eyes to follow. The bell rang, signaling the end of the break between classes. Students began dispersing to their next period, but the tension in the air was thick. Chad and his friends left without another word, but Maya could see the anger in their eyes. Danny gathered his books quickly. Thank you, he said quietly to Maya, but you shouldn't have done that. They're going to make your life miserable now. Maya smiled at him. Don't worry about me, Danny. I can take care of myself. As they walked to class together, Danny couldn't stop glancing at Maya with curiosity and admiration. How did you do that? It looked like he just fell down, but I know that's not what really happened. I have no idea what you're talking about, Maya said with an innocent expression. Chad is just clumsy, apparently. Danny laughed for the first time that morning. I like you, Maya, but seriously, be careful. Chad's family has a lot of influence in this town. His dad owns the biggest construction company, and his mom is on the school board. They can make things very difficult for people who cross them. Maya filed this information away. Understanding the local power structure was always important when operating in a new environment. Thanks for the warning, but I'm not worried about Chad. What Maya didn't say was that she had dealt with much more dangerous people than a spoiled teenager with anger management issues. During her training, she had faced adult opponents who were trying to seriously hurt her. Chad and his friends were just bullies who relied on intimidation and size. They had no real combat training and no experience dealing with someone who could fight back effectively. As Maya sat through her morning classes, she noticed that word was already spreading about the incident in the hallway. Students were whispering and pointing at her. Some looked impressed, others looked worried for her. A few seemed excited about the possibility of drama. By lunchtime, the story had grown in the telling. Some students claimed that Maya had used martial arts to flip Chad over her shoulder. Others said she had punched him in the stomach. The truth was much simpler, but Maya didn't bother to correct the rumors. Sometimes having a reputation for being dangerous was useful. Maya got her lunch and looked around the cafeteria for a place to sit. The social groups were clearly defined. Athletes at one set of tables, theater kids at another, academic achievers clustered together, and so on. She spotted Danny sitting alone at a small table in the corner and walked over to join him. "Mind if I sit here?" she asked. Danny looked surprised but pleased. "Sure, but are you certain you want to sit with me? It won't help your social status." Maya sat down across from him. "I'm not worried about social status. Besides, you seem more interesting than most people here." "Interesting?" Danny laughed. "I'm about as interesting as a math textbook. I spend my free time programming computers and reading science fiction novels." "That sounds pretty interesting to me," Maya said genuinely. "What kind of programming do you do?" Danny's face lit up as he began explaining his latest project involving artificial intelligence and pattern recognition. Maya listened with real interest. Her military training had included basic computer skills, and she found Danny's expertise impressive. Their conversation was interrupted when Chad appeared at their table. He had brought his two closest friends, Jake and Mike Stevens. All three of them played football and had the kind of build that usually intimidated smaller students. "Well, well," Chad said loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "Look who's making friends with the school loser." Maya looked up at Chad calmly. "Hi again, how's your wrist feeling?" Chad's jaw tightened at the reminder of his earlier humiliation. "Fine, just fine, but I wanted to talk to you about something." "I'm listening," Maya said, continuing to eat her sandwich. "See, I've been thinking about what happened this morning, and I realized there must have been some kind of misunderstanding." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "What kind of misunderstanding?" "Well, you seem to think that I was bothering Danny here, but that's not what was happening at all. Danny and I have an arrangement, don't we, Danny?" Danny looked down at his lunch tray and didn't respond. Maya could see the fear in his eyes. "What kind of arrangement?" Maya asked. "Danny helps us with our homework sometimes," Chad explained. "And in return, we make sure nobody else bothers him. It's like a protection service." "That's very generous of you," Maya said with a straight face. "And what does Danny get out of this protection service?" "He gets to eat lunch without having it dumped on his head," Mike Stevens said with a laugh. "He gets to walk to class without being shoved into lockers, little things like that." Maya nodded as if this made perfect sense. And if Danny ever decided he didn't need protection anymore? Chad leaned forward, placing his hands on the table. "Well, that would be a problem, because then we couldn't guarantee his safety. Bad things might start happening to him again." "What about me?" Maya asked. "Do I need protection too?" "That depends," Chad said. "Are you going to keep interfering with our business arrangements?" Maya appeared to consider this carefully. Around them, other students were pretending to eat while obviously listening to every word. "I think I understand now," Maya said finally. "You're running a protection racket that's actually pretty smart, very entrepreneurial." Chad smiled, thinking he had won her over. "Exactly, I knew you were smart." "There's just one problem," Maya continued. "What's that?" Maya's voice remained friendly and conversational. "Protection rackets are illegal. They're a form of extortion. The FBI takes them very seriously." Chad's smile faded. "Hey, we're not criminals. We're just teenagers helping each other out." "Of course," Maya agreed. "But if someone were to report this arrangement to the authorities, they might not see it the same way, especially if there was evidence of the threats and the money changing hands." She pulled out her phone and placed it on the table. "It's amazing how good phone cameras are these days, and the audio recording quality is really impressive." Chad stared at the phone, realizing that Maya might have been recording their entire conversation. His friends looked nervous. "You wouldn't dare," Chad said. "Dare what?" Maya asked innocently. "I'm just a student having lunch. If you're not doing anything wrong, then you shouldn't worry about being recorded." The standoff stretched for several seconds. Chad was trying to figure out if Maya was bluffing, and Maya was perfectly content to let him wonder. Finally, Chad straightened up. "This isn't over," he said quietly. "I hope not," Maya replied cheerfully. "I'm really looking forward to getting to know you better." After Chad and his friends left, Danny stared at Maya in amazement. "I can't believe you just did that, but you realize you've just made yourself their primary target, right?" Maya shrugged. "They were going to target me anyway. Bullies always go after anyone who stands up to them. At least now they know I'm not an easy mark." "But Maya, you don't understand. Chad's not just a bully. His family has connections all over town. His dad does business with the police chief. His mom influences school policy. They can make your life really difficult." "Let them try," Maya said calmly. "I've dealt with worse." Danny studied her face, trying to figure out what made her so confident. "There's something different about you. Most new students try to keep their heads down and avoid trouble, but you're actively looking for it." "I'm not looking for trouble," Maya corrected, "but I'm not afraid of it either." The rest of lunch passed peacefully, but Maya could feel eyes on her from all around the cafeteria. Chad and his friends sat at their usual table, talking quietly and occasionally glancing in her direction. Other students were clearly discussing the morning's events and speculating about what might happen next. When the lunch period ended, Maya walked with Danny to their afternoon classes. As they moved through the hallways, she noticed that several of Chad's friends were positioned at strategic locations. They were trying to be subtle, but Maya's training had taught her to recognize surveillance patterns. "They're watching us," Danny said quietly. "I know," Maya replied. "They're not very good at it." "What do you mean?" "If you want to follow someone without being noticed, you don't station people in obvious positions where the target has to walk past them. And you definitely don't have them all staring directly at the target." Danny looked around and realized that Maya was right. Chad's friends were making their surveillance obvious, which meant it was probably meant to intimidate rather than gather information. "They're trying to make us nervous," Maya explained. "It's a psychological tactic. They want us to feel like we're being watched all the time." "Isn't it working?" Danny asked. "I feel pretty nervous." Maya smiled. "That's because you're not used to it. After a while, you stop noticing." What Maya didn't tell Danny was that she had spent years learning to operate under much more sophisticated surveillance. During her military training, instructors had used real intelligence operatives to track trainees through urban environments. Compared to that level of professional observation, Chad's amateur hour was almost amusing. As the afternoon progressed, Maya began to understand the social dynamics of Riverside High School. Chad and his friends were at the top of the student hierarchy, but their power was based more on intimidation than actual respect. They had carved out their territory through bullying and had maintained it by making examples of anyone who challenged them. The teachers and administrators either didn't know about the systematic bullying or chose to ignore it. Maya suspected it was a combination of both. Chad's family had influence in the community, and that influence extended into the school system. But there were also students who resented Chad's reign but felt powerless to do anything about it. Maya could see it in their faces when Chad walked by. They looked away quickly, but not before she caught glimpses of anger and frustration. These were potential allies, Maya realized. Students who would support someone who could effectively challenge Chad's authority. But they would need to see proof that such a challenge could succeed before they would risk getting involved. Maya's last class of the day was physical education. She had been looking forward to it because it would give her a chance to assess the athletic capabilities of her potential opponents. She changed into the required gym clothes and joined the other students in the gymnasium. The PE teacher, Coach Martinez, was a former college football player who still maintained an impressive physique. He had the class doing various fitness exercises and drills. Maya participated without drawing attention to herself, but she was careful to observe everything around her. Chad and his friends were in the same PE class, and Maya could see them whispering among themselves while glancing in her direction. She pretended not to notice while mentally cataloging their physical strengths and weaknesses. Chad was the largest of the group, with the kind of muscle mass that came from regular weight training. But Maya could see that his movements were clumsy and predictable. He relied on size and strength rather than speed or technique. Jake was quicker but smaller. He had the lean build of a runner, which meant he could probably move fast but wouldn't be able to take much punishment. Mike Stevens fell somewhere between his two friends. He was strong enough to be dangerous but not quick enough to be elusive. All three of them had the swagger of athletes who were used to physical dominance, but Maya could see that their confidence was built on a foundation of never having faced real opposition. They were used to winning through intimidation and overwhelming force. When class ended, Maya changed back into her regular clothes and headed for her locker. The school day was almost over, and she was looking forward to going home and telling her parents about her first day. She wasn't planning to mention the confrontation with Chad. Her parents worried enough about her adjustment to civilian life without adding teenage drama to their concerns. As Maya walked to her locker, she noticed that the hallways were emptying out quickly. Most students were eager to get home or to their after-school activities. This meant fewer witnesses for whatever Chad and his friends might be planning. Maya wasn't surprised when she found Chad, Jake, and Mike waiting by her locker. They had positioned themselves to block her access while maintaining the appearance of casual conversation. "Hey, Maya," Chad said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "How was your first day?" "Educational," Maya replied. "I learned a lot about the social structure here." "Good, good. We were hoping we could continue our conversation from lunchtime, somewhere more private." Maya looked around the nearly empty hallway. "This seems private enough." "Actually," Chad said, stepping closer, "we were thinking more like the parking lot, fewer distractions." Maya understood the implication. They wanted to get her somewhere isolated where they could use physical intimidation without witnesses. This was exactly what she had expected them to try. "Sure," she said agreeably. "Lead the way." Chad looked surprised by her easy agreement. He had probably expected more resistance. But Maya had learned that sometimes the best strategy was to let your opponents choose the battlefield, especially when you were confident in your ability to control the situation once it began. The four of them walked toward the parking lot together. To any casual observer, they might have looked like friends heading home together. But Maya was using the time to finalize her tactical assessment. Chad and his friends were overconfident. They believed they were leading a lamb to slaughter, which meant they would be unprepared for serious resistance. They also clearly had no real fighting experience beyond bullying smaller students. Maya, on the other hand, had been trained by some of the best combat instructors in the military. She had sparred with adult soldiers and had learned to use her smaller size and greater speed to overcome larger opponents. The parking lot was mostly empty, with just a few cars belonging to students who had stayed for after-school activities. Chad led the group to a secluded area between two large pickup trucks where they would be hidden from the view of anyone in the school building. "All right," Chad said, his friendly facade dropping away. "Time for lesson 2. "What's lesson 2? Maya asked with apparent innocence. "Lesson 2 is about consequences," Chad explained. "See, when you embarrass someone in front of half the school, there have to be consequences. Otherwise, people might get the wrong idea about who's really in charge around here." Maya nodded thoughtfully. "That makes sense. Reputation is important." "Exactly. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize for this morning. You're going to promise to mind your own business from now on. And you're going to transfer some money into my account as a sign of respect." "And if I don't?" Maya asked. Chad smiled coldly. "Then my friends and I are going to have to convince you, and trust me, you don't want that." Jake and Mike moved to flank Maya, just like they had done in the hallway that morning. But this time there were no witnesses and no teachers who might intervene. "How much money are we talking about?" Maya asked. $500 should cover it," Chad said. "Consider it a one-time fee for your education and how things work around here." Maya whistled softly. "That's a lot of money. I'm not sure I have that much." "Then you better figure out how to get it," Mike said with a threatening tone. "Or what?" Maya asked, genuine curiosity in her voice. "Or we'll have to take it out of your hide," Jake added. Maya looked around the parking lot, as if checking for witnesses or escape routes. What she was actually doing was confirming that they were truly alone, and identifying any obstacles or objects that might be useful in the coming confrontation. "You know," she said finally, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." "What kind of misunderstanding?" Chad demanded. Maya's demeanor shifted slightly. Her posture became more alert and her voice took on a different quality. "You seem to think I'm afraid of you." Chad laughed. "You should be afraid. There are 3 of us and 1 of you, and we're all bigger than you." "That's true," Maya agreed. "You are all bigger than me." "So are you going to apologize and pay up?" Chad asked. Maya smiled, and for the first time all day, her expression wasn't innocent or friendly. It was the smile of a predator who had been hiding among sheep. "No," she said simply. The word hung in the air for a moment as Chad and his friends processed what they had just heard. "What did you say?" Chad asked, his voice rising. "I said no. I'm not apologizing, I'm not paying you anything, and I'm not afraid of you." Chad's face turned red with anger. "You little—" He didn't finish the sentence because Maya had moved. In the space of a heartbeat, she had closed the distance between them and struck him in the solar plexus with a perfectly placed palm strike. Chad doubled over, gasping for air and unable to speak. Jake and Mike stood frozen for a crucial second, shocked by the speed and effectiveness of Maya's attack. That second was all she needed to position herself for what came next. Maya spun toward Jake, using her momentum to deliver a spinning heel kick to his midsection. The impact lifted him off his feet and sent him crashing into the side of one of the pickup trucks. He slid to the ground and stayed there, dazed and struggling to breathe. Mike finally overcame his shock and lunged toward Maya with his fists raised. He was bigger and stronger than her, but he had no training and no experience fighting someone who could actually fight back. Maya ducked under his wild swing and swept his legs out from under him. As he fell, she grabbed his wrist and used his own momentum to send him face first into the asphalt. He hit hard and didn't get up. The entire fight had lasted less than 10 seconds. Chad was still bent over trying to breathe. Jake was semi-conscious against the pickup truck, and Mike was motionless on the ground. Maya straightened her clothes and checked her watch. "Well, that was educational," she said to no one in particular. Chad finally managed to stand up straight, though he was still having trouble breathing normally. He looked around at his fallen friends with disbelief and growing fear. "What are you?" he gasped. "I'm the new girl," Maya replied pleasantly. "Remember, you were going to teach me how things work around here." Chad backed away from her, suddenly realizing that everything he thought he knew about this situation had been wrong. "You can't do this, my father." "Your father what?" Maya interrupted. "Your father will call the police and tell them that his son and 2 friends cornered a girl in a parking lot and demanded money from her. I'm sure that conversation will go well." Chad looked around desperately, as if hoping someone would come to his rescue, but they were still alone in the parking lot. "Besides," Maya continued conversationally, "what happened here? From where I'm standing, it looks like you 3 had some kind of accident. Maybe you were roughhousing and things got out of hand." She gestured to Jake and Mike, who were both starting to move but were clearly in no condition to continue fighting. "I mean, I'm just a girl," Maya said with mock innocence. "How could I possibly hurt 3 big, strong football players? That would be impossible, wouldn't it?" Chad stared at her, finally beginning to understand that he was completely out of his depth. This wasn't some random new student he could intimidate. This was someone with real skills and no fear of using them. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "I want you to leave me alone," Maya replied. "I want you to leave Danny alone. In fact, I want you to leave everyone alone." "And if I don't?" Maya's smile returned, and it was even more predatory than before. "Then we'll have more educational experiences like this one, except next time I might not be so gentle." Chad looked down at his friends, who were both groaning and trying to sit up. If this was Maya being gentle, he definitely didn't want to see her being serious. "This isn't over," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Yes, it is," Maya replied firmly. "It's completely over, unless you want to make it not over, in which case I'm happy to continue your education whenever you're ready." Chad helped Jake to his feet while Mike slowly stood up on his own. All 3 of them were moving carefully, like people who had just discovered they weren't as tough as they thought they were. "Come on," Chad muttered to his friends. "Let's get out of here." Maya watched them limp away toward Chad's expensive sports car. She waited until they had driven out of the parking lot before allowing herself to relax. The confrontation had gone exactly as she had expected it to. Chad and his friends were bullies, not fighters. They had relied on size and intimidation for so long that they had never learned how to handle real opposition. When faced with someone who could actually fight back, they had crumbled immediately. Maya picked up her backpack and headed toward the bus stop. Her first day at Riverside High School had been more eventful than most students experienced, but she was satisfied with the outcome. She had established her position in the school's social hierarchy, identified potential allies and enemies, and demonstrated that she was not someone to be trifled with. As she waited for the bus, Maya reflected on how different civilian schools were from military academies. At the academy, conflicts were resolved through official channels and supervised competition. Here, it seemed like students were left to sort things out for themselves, which led to situations like Chad's protection racket. But Maya was adaptable. She had been trained to operate in various environments, and Riverside High School was just another mission with its own unique challenges and objectives. The bus arrived, and Maya climbed aboard for the ride home. She was looking forward to seeing her parents and hearing about their first day in the new town. She was also looking forward to a quiet evening to plan her strategy for the days ahead. Because while today's confrontation was over, Maya knew that Chad wouldn't give up easily. His reputation and his family's position in the community depended on maintaining his dominance at school. He would be back, probably with a new strategy and possibly additional resources. But Maya wasn't worried. She had faced much more dangerous opponents than angry teenagers, and she had something that Chad and his friends would never understand: real training, real discipline, and real confidence that came from genuine skill rather than inherited privilege. As the bus pulled away from Riverside High School, Maya smiled to herself. Tomorrow was going to be interesting. They messed with the wrong new girl. Maya arrived at school the next morning to find the atmosphere had changed completely. Word of yesterday's parking lot incident had spread through the student body like wildfire, though the details had been twisted and exaggerated in typical teenage fashion. Some students claimed Maya had used ninja moves to defeat 3 football players simultaneously. Others whispered that she must have used weapons or had help from hidden accomplices. The truth was simpler, but much more impressive to those who understood what real combat training looked like. Maya noticed the change immediately as she walked through the hallways. Students who had ignored her yesterday now stared openly. Some looked at her with fear, others with admiration, and a few with obvious curiosity. The invisible barriers that divided the school's social groups seemed less solid when she passed by. Danny was waiting by her locker, practically bouncing with excitement and nervous energy. "Maya, I heard what happened yesterday. Is it true? Did you really fight Chad and his friends?" "I have no idea what you're talking about," Maya replied with an innocent expression as she worked her locker combination. "Chad and his friends had some kind of accident in the parking lot. Very clumsy of them." Danny grinned. He was beginning to understand Maya's pattern of plausible deniability. "Right, an accident. How unfortunate for them." "Very unfortunate," Maya agreed. "I hope they're feeling better today." As if summoned by their conversation, Chad appeared at the end of the hallway. He was walking stiffly, favoring his left side where Maya's palm strike had connected with his solar plexus. Jake and Mike flanked him, both moving like people who had spent the night discovering new muscles they never knew existed. The normal buzz of hallway conversation died down as other students noticed the confrontation brewing. Maya continued organizing her locker calmly while Danny stepped slightly behind her. Chad approached slowly, clearly reluctant to get within arm's reach of Maya. His usual swagger was completely absent, replaced by the careful movements of someone who had learned to be afraid. "We need to talk," he said quietly. "Sure," Maya replied without turning around. "What would you like to talk about?" "Not here, somewhere private." Maya finally turned to face him, nodding the obvious discomfort in his posture and the way his friends hung back several steps. "I thought we talked yesterday, in the parking lot, remember?" "Things have changed," Chad said through gritted teeth. "What kind of things?" Chad glanced around at the watching students and lowered his voice further. "My father wants to meet you." Maya raised an eyebrow. "Your father? That's interesting. What does he want to meet me about?" Just be at construction tonight at 7 o'clock. The address is on Oak Street. Chad dropped a business card on the floor near Maya's feet rather than handing it to her directly. Don't be late. He turned and walked away with his friends, leaving Maya holding the business card and Danny staring at her with worry. This is bad, Danny said once Chad was out of earshot. Construction is the biggest company in town. Chad's father, Richard, basically controls half the local economy. If he's getting involved, it means this has escalated way beyond high school drama. Maya studied the business card. Tell me about Richard. He's like Chad, but older and smarter and with real power. He owns the construction company, has contracts with the city government, and employs about a third of the blue-collar workers in town. He's also rumored to have connections with some very unsavory people. What kind of unsavory people? Danny looked around nervously before answering. There are stories about how he got so successful so fast. Some people say he has ties to organized crime families from the big cities. Nothing proven, but there have been incidents with his competitors over the years. Mysterious accidents, unexpected financial problems, that sort of thing. Maya filed this information away. If Richard did have criminal connections, it changed the nature of the threat she was facing. This was no longer just about teenage bullies. Are you going to meet with him? Danny asked. Of course, Maya said. It would be rude not to. Maya, this isn't a joke. If Richard sees you as a threat to his son's position at school, he might see you as a threat to his family's reputation in the community. People who threaten the family have a history of relocating to other towns very suddenly. Maya smiled. Don't worry about me, Danny. I can handle Richard. What Maya didn't tell Danny was that dealing with powerful men who used intimidation and violence to maintain control was exactly what she had been trained for. During her military preparation, she had studied the psychology and tactics of criminal organizations, corrupt officials, and other threats to national security. Richard might be a big fish in the small pond of Riverside, but Maya had been prepared to deal with much larger predators. The rest of the school day passed with Maya continuing to feel the weight of curious stares and whispered conversations. Teachers who had barely noticed her yesterday now watched her carefully, as if expecting trouble. Other students gave her a wide berth in the hallways, unsure whether she was dangerous or just misunderstood. Maya used the attention to her advantage, observing how the school's social dynamics were shifting in response to her presence. Several students who had previously been afraid to make eye contact with Chad now looked more confident. A few even nodded respectfully to Maya as she passed. At lunch, Maya found herself with unexpected company. 3 girls approached her table where she was sitting with Danny. She recognized them as students who usually kept their heads down and avoided drawing attention from Chad's crowd. Maya, the leader, was a girl named Sarah, who Maya remembered from her chemistry class. Could we talk to you for a minute? Sure, Maya replied. Sit down. The 3 girls exchanged glances before Sarah spoke again. We heard about what happened yesterday with Chad and his friends. I heard they had an accident, Maya said neutrally. Right, an accident. Sarah smiled slightly. The thing is, Chad and his crew have been making life miserable for a lot of students here. Not just Danny. They have this whole system of collecting money and favors from people they consider beneath them. Maya nodded encouragingly. That sounds unpleasant. It is, and we were wondering, if someone were to stand up to them again, would they have support? What kind of support? Maya asked. Witnesses, said one of the other girls. Documentation, evidence of what they've been doing. Some of us have been keeping records. Maya was intrigued. What kind of records? Sarah pulled out her phone and showed Maya a video. I recorded this last month when Chad's friends cornered my little brother in the bathroom and demanded his lunch money. I've got dozens of videos like this. Why haven't you shown these to the school administration? Because Chad's mother is on the school board, Sarah explained, and his father employs half the parents in town. Nobody wants to risk their family's livelihood to protect their kids from school bullying. Maya understood immediately. The family had created a network of economic dependency that made them virtually untouchable through normal channels. Anyone who opposed them risked not just their own welfare, but their family's financial security. So what exactly are you proposing? Maya asked. We're proposing an alliance, Sarah said. You've already proven you can handle Chad and his friends physically. We can provide evidence of their systematic abuse of other students. Together, we might be able to do something that none of us could accomplish alone. Maya considered the offer. Having allies with documentation and inside knowledge would be valuable, especially if the conflict escalated beyond the school environment. "What would you want from me in return?" she asked. "Protection," Sarah said simply. "If we come forward with evidence, Chad will retaliate. His family will retaliate. We need someone who can stand up to them." "And you think I can do that?" Sarah looked directly into Maya's eyes. "I think you're not afraid of them. That makes you the first person we've met who might actually be able to change things." Maya made her decision. "All right, I'm interested. But we do this smart and careful, no unnecessary risks, and no one gets hurt unless they absolutely force the issue." The girls nodded eagerly. Maya had just acquired an intelligence network, documentation of family crimes, and a legitimate cause that went beyond her personal conflict with Chad. After school, Maya went home to prepare for her meeting with Richard. She told her parents she was going to study at a friend's house, which was technically true if you considered Richard a friend. She was planning to study. Maya changed into dark jeans and a black sweater, clothes that would give her freedom of movement if the meeting turned physical. She also made sure her phone was fully charged and had a backup battery pack. If things went badly, she wanted to be able to call for help or record evidence. Construction was located in an industrial area on the edge of town, surrounded by equipment yards and storage buildings. Maya arrived precisely at 7 o'clock, noting the security cameras and the lack of other people in the area. The main building was a two-story structure with large windows that revealed well-lit offices inside. Maya could see several men in expensive suits moving around, conducting what looked like normal business meetings. She walked through the front door and approached the receptionist, a middle-aged woman who looked like she had been expecting Maya's arrival. "Maya," the woman asked. "That's me. Mister is waiting for you in his office, top floor, end of the hall." Maya took the elevator to the second floor and walked down a hallway lined with photographs showing construction projects and community events. Richard appeared in many of the pictures, shaking hands with politicians and cutting ribbons at building dedications. The door to his office was open, revealing a large room with expensive furniture and an impressive view of the town. Richard stood behind his desk, and Maya could immediately see where Chad had inherited his size and presence. Richard was in his 50s, with graying hair and the build of a man who had done physical labor before becoming successful. He wore an expensive suit, but his hands showed the calluses of someone who had worked with tools. His eyes were intelligent and calculating as they studied Maya. "Miss," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes, "thank you for coming. Please sit down." Maya took the offered chair, nodding that it positioned her with her back to the door while giving a commanding view of the entire room. It was a power play, but a subtle one. "Your son suggested we should meet," Maya said politely. "My son is an idiot," replied bluntly. "But he's my idiot, and that makes his problems my problems." Maya nodded as if this made perfect sense. "What kind of problems are we talking about?" Leaned back in his chair and studied Maya carefully. "The kind of problems that happen when someone new arrives in town and doesn't understand how things work here." "I'm always eager to learn," Maya said. "Good, that's a healthy attitude." Stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the town spread below. "Riverside is a good community. People work hard, follow the rules, and take care of each other. My family has been part of building that community for 3 generations." Maya listened without comment, recognizing the speech pattern of someone explaining why their authority should be respected. "But communities like this are fragile," continued. "They depend on everyone understanding their place and role. When someone disrupts that balance, it can cause problems for a lot of innocent people." "What kind of disruption are you concerned about?" Maya asked. Turned back to face her. "Yesterday, 3 high school students were injured in what I'm told was an unprovoked attack by a new student. That kind of violence has no place in our community." Maya raised an eyebrow. "That's not how I heard it. I heard that 3 students had an accident while trying to extort money from a new student." "Extort?" His voice hardened slightly. "That's a very serious accusation, miss. I hope you have evidence to support such a claim." "I have all the evidence I need," Maya replied calmly. Studied her for a long moment before sitting back down at his desk. Let me be direct, miss. My son tells me that you have some kind of martial arts training. That's impressive for someone your age, but it's also concerning. Concerning how? Concerning because it suggests you might be looking for trouble. And people who look for trouble in my town tend to find more than they bargained for. Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature in the office. His tone had shifted from paternal to threatening, and she could see why Danny had been worried about this meeting. I'm not looking for trouble, mister, but I'm also not afraid of it. Smiled, and this time it was genuinely amused. That's what I was hoping you'd say, because it confirms what I suspected about you. What do you suspect about me? I suspect you're not just some random teenager with a few karate lessons. The way you handled 3 athletic boys suggests real training, professional training. Maya kept her expression neutral, but internally she was reassessing the threat level, was more perceptive than she had expected. I also suspect, continued, that your father's military assignment to the local base is not a coincidence. The timing of your arrival, just as we're dealing with some federal oversight issues, is very interesting. Maya felt a jolt of alarm. If it connected her to her father's assignment, it meant he had access to information that should have been classified. I think you have me confused with someone else, Maya said carefully. Do I, Colonel James, assigned to the 15th Intelligence Brigade at Fort Harrison, specialized in counterintelligence and domestic threat assessment. His daughter Maya, age 17, with an impressive record at various military youth programs. Reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a file folder, which he placed on the desk between them. It's amazing what you can learn when you have the right connections. Maya stared at the folder, realizing that her cover as an ordinary teenager was completely blown. Knew exactly who she was and why she might be in Riverside. The question, continued, is whether you're here as part of an official investigation or if you're just a teenager who happens to have unusual skills. Maya made a quick decision. There was no point in maintaining her cover now, and knowledge suggested that he might be involved in something much more serious than high school bullying. What kind of official investigation are you worried about, mister? Laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. Very good, you're admitting nothing while fishing for information. Your father trained you well. My father taught me to be careful around people who threaten teenagers. Is that what you think I'm doing, threatening you? Aren't you? Stood up again and walked around his desk until he was standing directly in front of Maya's chair. Miss, I'm going to be completely honest with you. Your arrival in Riverside has coincided with some unwelcome federal attention to my business operations. That could be a coincidence, or it could be something more deliberate. What kind of federal attention? The kind that asks questions about how certain contracts were awarded and where certain materials have been delivered. The kind that suggests someone has been providing information to investigators. Maya began to understand the real scope of what she had stumbled into. This wasn't just about Chad bullying classmates. This was about federal crimes and investigation that could bring down Richard's entire operation. And you think my family is involved in this investigation? I think your father has the kind of background that would make him very valuable to investigators who needed someone with military intelligence experience. And I think having his daughter enrolled in the local high school would provide excellent cover for ongoing surveillance. Maya realized that had constructed an elaborate conspiracy theory around her presence in Riverside. The truth was much simpler. Her father had been assigned to the base for routine duties, and she was just a teenager trying to fit into a new school. But's paranoia had turned her into a perceived threat to his criminal enterprise. Mister, Maya said carefully, I think you're giving me and my family far more credit than we deserve. Maybe, but I've built my success on being careful about potential threats. And right now, you represent the biggest potential threat I've faced in years. What do you want from me? Returned to his chair and leaned forward. I want you to understand that continuing to interfere with my son's activities at school will be seen as confirmation that you're here for intelligence-gathering purposes. And if I determine that you and your family are working against my interests, I will take appropriate action to protect myself. The threat was clear and direct. Maya understood that was telling her to back off or face consequences that would extend to her entire family. What kind of appropriate action? Maya asked. The kind that has kept my business successful for 20 years. I have connections throughout this community, miss. Police, judges, city council members, business owners. If your family becomes a problem for me, they will find life in Riverside very difficult. Maya nodded as if considering his words seriously. And if I agree to leave your son alone, then you can continue being a normal teenager at Riverside High School. Your father can complete his assignment without any complications. Everyone stays safe and happy. That sounds reasonable, Maya said. There's just one problem. What's that? Maya stood up from her chair and looked directly into his eyes. Your son and his friends are criminals. They're running a protection racket and systematically abusing other students. Even if I wanted to ignore that, I couldn't. His expression darkened. Miss, I strongly advise you to reconsider. No, Maya interrupted. I've heard your offer and I'm rejecting it. Your son is going to stop bullying people and you're going to stop threatening families who oppose you. Stood up slowly, his bulk making him an imposing figure. Young lady, you are making a very serious mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Maya walked toward the door, but's voice stopped her. Miss, before you leave, there's something else you should know. Maya turned back to face him. Your little stunt yesterday in the parking lot was recorded by our security cameras. The video shows you assaulting 3 students without provocation. If that video were to be shared with the police, you could face serious criminal charges. Maya felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She hadn't considered the possibility of surveillance in the school parking lot. Of course, continued, if we could reach an understanding about your future behavior, that video might never be seen by anyone. Maya realized she was being blackmailed, had evidence that could potentially destroy her future, and he was using it to force her compliance. I understand, Maya said quietly. Good, I'm glad we could reach an understanding. Maya left's office feeling like she had just walked through a minefield. The situation was much more complex and dangerous than she had realized. Wasn't just a local businessman with a spoiled son. He was the center of a criminal network with the power to destroy anyone who opposed him. But Maya had also learned something important, was afraid of her. His elaborate conspiracy theories about federal investigations meant that he was engaged in activities serious enough to warrant federal attention. That suggested vulnerabilities that could be exploited. As Maya drove home, she began formulating a new strategy. The direct approach had revealed the true scope of the problem, but it had also escalated the conflict beyond what she could handle alone. It was time to involve some adults who had the authority and resources to deal with criminal organizations. Maya pulled into her driveway and sat in the car for a moment, organizing her thoughts. Her parents would be inside, probably wondering how her second day at the new school had gone. She was going to have to tell them the truth about what was happening in Riverside. The truth about Chad's bullying, his father's criminal organization, the systematic intimidation of families throughout the community, and the federal investigation that might already be. But first, she was going to do some research. Maya had learned enough about Richard to know that he was dangerous, but she needed to understand exactly how dangerous and what resources he had at his disposal. Maya went to her room and opened her laptop. Her military training had included basic cybersecurity and intelligence-gathering techniques. She began searching for information about construction, Richard's background, and any public records that might shed light on his business practices. What she found was troubling. Construction had won an unusual number of government contracts over the past decade, often outbidding more established companies by significant margins. The company had also expanded rapidly, acquiring smaller competitors in ways that seemed financially questionable. There were newspaper articles about accidents that had befallen its rivals, a warehouse fire that destroyed a competitor's equipment, a bridge collapse that bankrupted another construction company, financial scandals that forced several business owners to sell their companies to at below-market prices. Individually, these incidents could be explained as bad luck or poor business decisions. Collectively, they painted a picture of systematic elimination of competition through sabotage and intimidation. Maya also found references to federal investigations into construction industry corruption in the region. The articles were vague, but they mentioned concerns about bid rigging, money laundering, and possible connections to organized crime families. This confirmed fear about federal attention. He wasn't just worried about his son's bullying being exposed. He was worried about a criminal enterprise that could result in federal prison sentences for everyone involved. Maya closed her laptop and considered her options. She could try to continue fighting Chad at school while avoiding his father's attention, but that would be difficult given surveillance capabilities and criminal connections. She could tell her parents everything and let them handle the situation through official channels, but that would take time and might put her family in danger. Or she could take a more proactive approach. Maya had skills and training that most teenagers lacked. She also had access to information networks through her father's military contacts. If she was careful and smart, she might be able to gather enough evidence to bring down the organization while protecting her family and the other students being victimized. Maya made her decision. Tomorrow, she would begin phase 2 of her operation against the family. But this time, she would be fighting a war instead of winning a battle. She went downstairs to join her parents for dinner, already planning how to begin the most dangerous mission of her young life. They messed with the wrong new girl. Maya sat at the breakfast table the next morning, watching her parents read the local newspaper and discuss their plans for the day. Colonel was reviewing reports from the base, while her mother, Doctor, prepared for her first day at the regional medical center. "How was your meeting last night, honey?" her mother asked. "You seemed quiet when you came home." Maya had told her parents she was studying with a friend, but now she realized she needed to involve them in what was happening. The situation with the family had escalated beyond what she could handle alone. "Mom, Dad, I need to tell you something important about what's been happening at school." Her parents immediately gave her their full attention. Colonel set down his reports while Doctor sat down across from Maya. "What kind of something?" her father asked in his serious military voice. Maya took a deep breath and began explaining everything. The bullying she had witnessed, her confrontation with Chad, the meeting with Richard, and the threats against their family. She also shared her research about construction and the pattern of suspicious incidents involving the company's competitors. When she finished, her parents sat in stunned silence for several minutes. "Maya," her father said finally, "why didn't you tell us about this immediately?" "Because I thought I could handle it myself, and because I didn't want to worry you about high school drama." "This isn't high school drama," Doctor said firmly. "This is criminal behavior and direct threats against our family." Colonel was already reaching for his phone. "I need to make some calls. If Richard has access to classified information about my assignment, that's a serious security breach." "Dad, wait," Maya said. "Before you call anyone, there's something else you should know." Her parents looked at her expectantly. "I think I can gather the evidence needed to bring down this entire operation. But I'll need help, and it might be dangerous." "Absolutely not," Doctor said immediately. "Maya, you're 17 years old. This is not your responsibility." "Mom, I have training that most adults don't have, and I've already made contact with students who have been documenting crimes for months. If we move carefully, we can protect everyone while building a case that will put him away permanently." Colonel studied his daughter carefully. He knew about her military training and had seen her tactical thinking in action. "What kind of plan are you proposing?" Maya pulled out her phone and showed them the videos Sarah had shared. "These students have been gathering evidence for months, but they've been too afraid to come forward because of his influence in the community. If we can protect them and coordinate their testimony with a federal investigation, we can bypass local connections." "You said federal investigation," Colonel noted. "Do you have reason to believe there's already an active investigation?" "Was afraid enough to threaten us based on your assignment here. That suggests he knows something about federal interest in his activities." Colonel nodded slowly. "I'll need to contact my superiors and find out if there are any ongoing investigations I should know about. If there are, we might be able to coordinate with them." "And if there aren't," Maya asked, "then we'll start one." Doctor looked between her husband and daughter with growing alarm. "Are you both seriously considering involving Maya in what could be a federal criminal investigation?" Colonel said gently, "Maya has already been involved whether we like it or not, has made her a target. The question now is whether we react defensively or take proactive steps to neutralize the threat." "I want stopped," Maya said firmly. Not just for us, but for all the students and families he's been terrorizing. This is our chance to do something about it. Doctor sighed. What would Maya's role be in this plan? Information gathering, Colonel replied. Maya has access to the school environment and has already made contact with potential witnesses. She can coordinate the evidence collection while we handle the official investigation. Maya felt a surge of pride that her father was treating her as a capable partner rather than a child who needed protection. But, Colonel continued, looking directly at Maya, you follow orders exactly as given. No improvisation, no taking unnecessary risks, and no direct confrontation with or his people. Understood. Understood, Maya replied. Colonel stood up and began packing, which Maya recognized as his planning mode. All right. First priority is confirming whether there's an existing investigation. Second priority is establishing secure communication with the student witnesses. Third priority is documenting everything has done and building a comprehensive case. What about Chad? Maya asked. He's going to continue bullying students while we're building our case. Chad is now the least of our concerns, her father replied. But you're right that we can't let him continue victimizing other students. We'll need to find a way to neutralize his behavior without escalating the conflict with his father. Maya smiled. I think I have an idea about that. At school that day, Maya put the first phase of her new plan into action. Instead of avoiding Chad, she sought him out during lunch period. She found him at his usual table with Jake and Mike, both of whom still looked uncomfortable when she approached. Chad, Maya said pleasantly, could I talk to you for a minute? Chad looked up suspiciously. What do you want? I wanted to apologize for the misunderstanding in the parking lot yesterday. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Chad's friends exchanged confused glances. This wasn't what they had expected. What kind of misunderstanding? Chad asked warily. Maya sat down at their table without being invited. I think you were trying to be friendly, and I misinterpreted your intentions. My father says I should be more open to making new friends. Your father? Chad's expression became more alert. What did your father say exactly? He said that successful families in small towns often have traditional ways of welcoming newcomers. He thinks it's important that I learn to fit in with local customs. Maya was speaking carefully, using language that Chad would interpret as submission while actually saying nothing of the kind. So you're saying you want to be friends? Chad asked, still suspicious. I'm saying I want to understand how things work here. Your father explained some of it to me yesterday, but I think I need a more detailed education. Chad relaxed slightly. He interpreted Maya's words as confirmation that his father had successfully intimidated her into compliance. What kind of education? He asked. The kind that helps me understand who the important people are and how to show them proper respect. Jake and Mike started to smile, thinking that Maya was finally acknowledging their social superiority. Chad leaned back in his chair with satisfaction. Well, that's more like it. I was starting to think you were going to be difficult. Oh no, Maya said with apparent sincerity. I'm very easy to get along with once I understand the rules. Good. The first rule is that I run things at this school. Students who want to have a good time here make sure they stay on my good side. How do I stay on your good side? Maya asked. Chad grinned. Easy. You do favors for me when I ask. You give me information about what other students are saying, and you contribute to my expenses when I need help with something. Maya nodded as if this made perfect sense. What kind of favors? What kind of information? What kind of expenses? Chad launched into a detailed explanation of his bullying system, apparently believing that Maya was now a willing participant. He described how he collected money from various students, how he used intimidation to maintain control, and how he punished students who resisted his authority. What Chad didn't realize was that Maya was recording their entire conversation on her phone. That sounds very organized, Maya said when Chad finished his explanation. You must have learned this system from someone experienced. My father taught me that power has to be maintained, Chad said proudly. People need to know there are consequences for crossing the wrong people. Your father sounds very wise. Has he taught you other things about maintaining power? Chad, enjoying the opportunity to brag, began describing some of his father's business practices. He didn't have complete information, but he revealed enough to confirm Maya's suspicions about the family's criminal activities. "That's fascinating," Maya said when Chad finished. "I can see why your family is so successful." "Exactly, and now that you understand how things work, I'm sure we'll get along great." Maya stood up from the table. "I'm looking forward to learning more. This has been very educational." As Maya walked away, Chad turned to his friends with satisfaction. "See, I told you the new girl would come around once she understood the situation." Jake and Mike nodded agreement, but privately they wondered if Maya's sudden change in attitude was genuine. Something about her demeanor didn't seem completely sincere. Maya spent the rest of the lunch period meeting with Sarah and her allies. She shared her recording of Chad's confession and explained the new strategy. "My father is working with federal investigators," Maya told them. "We're going to build a comprehensive case against the family, but we need to be very careful about how we collect evidence." Sarah looked excited but nervous. "What do you need us to do?" "Keep doing what you've been doing, but be more systematic about it. I need you to document every incident, every threat, every payment that Chad demands from students. We also need to identify anyone who's been victimized by construction's business practices." "How do we do that safely?" asked one of the other girls. "Very carefully. Never take unnecessary risks and always have backup plans. If anyone in the group feels threatened or unsafe, they immediately contact me or withdraw from the operation." Maya spent the next several days implementing her intelligence-gathering operation. Working with Sarah's group, she created a comprehensive network of student informants who documented Chad's activities throughout the school. Meanwhile, Colonel was making progress on the official investigation. His contacts at the base had confirmed that there was indeed an ongoing federal investigation into construction industry corruption in the region. Construction was one of several companies under scrutiny for possible bid rigging and money laundering. The federal investigators were very interested in the evidence Maya's network was gathering, particularly Chad's recorded confession about his family's methods for maintaining power. But Richard was not sitting idle during this time. He had noticed the change in Chad's reports about the school situation and had begun his own investigation into Maya's activities. Maya first realized that was watching her when she noticed the same car parked near her house on consecutive days. Her training had taught her to be alert for surveillance, and the pattern was obvious once she knew what to look for. She confirmed surveillance by deliberately varying her route home from school and observing how the watchers adjusted their positions. It was professional-level surveillance, which meant had access to people with real training. Maya reported this development to her father, who immediately implemented additional security measures for their family. He also accelerated the timeline for the federal investigation, knowing that surveillance meant the situation could escalate quickly. The crisis came on a Friday afternoon. Maya was walking to her car in the school parking lot when she noticed that Chad and his friends were not alone. 3 adult men in dark suits were standing near the school entrance, obviously watching her. Maya recognized the situation immediately, had decided that passive surveillance was insufficient. He was moving to active intimidation and possibly to direct action against her. Maya got into her car and began driving home, but she quickly realized that she was being followed by multiple vehicles. This wasn't casual surveillance anymore. This was a coordinated operation designed to corner her. Maya used her phone to call her father while continuing to drive evasively through the suburban streets. "Dad, I'm being followed by multiple vehicles. I count at least 3 cars with what look like professional operatives." "Where are you now?" Colonel asked immediately. "Heading toward downtown, but they're trying to box me in. I think they want to force me to stop." "Do not stop. Drive directly to the police station." "Dad has influence with the local police. That might not be safe." Colonel was quiet for a moment as he considered their options. "Maya, there's something I haven't told you. The federal investigation has been accelerated because of the evidence you've gathered. Arrest warrants for Richard and several associates are going to be executed within the next hour." Maya felt a surge of hope. So this is almost over. "It should be, but might have learned about the impending arrests. If he's moving against you now, it means he's desperate and dangerous." Maya checked her mirrors and saw that her pursuers were closing in. They had coordinated their movements to limit her escape routes, and she was running out of street to maneuver. "Dad, I need to find somewhere safe to wait for help. The school parking lot is too isolated, and they'll intercept me before I can reach the police station." "What about the military base? The main gate is only a few miles from your location." Maya calculated the distance and time required. "I can make it, but it'll be close. I'm calling ahead to alert base security. They'll be ready for your arrival." Maya changed direction and began driving toward Fort Harrison. Her pursuers immediately adjusted their formation, confirming that they were monitoring her location in real time. As Maya approached the base, she could see two of the pursuing vehicles accelerating to try to intercept her before she reached the security checkpoint. This was going to be close. Maya floored the accelerator and raced toward the main gate of Fort Harrison. Behind her, she could see the pursuing cars struggling to keep up with her evasive driving. The base security guards had been alerted and were ready when Maya's car approached the checkpoint at high speed. They immediately moved to block the road behind her while waving her through the gate. The pursuing vehicles had to stop or risk a direct confrontation with military security. Maya watched through her rear window as the cars turned around and departed quickly. She had made it to safety, but just barely. Colonel was waiting for her at the security checkpoint, along with several federal agents who had been coordinating the investigation. "Maya, are you all right?" her father asked as she got out of her car. "I'm fine, but is definitely escalating. Those weren't local criminals, those were professionals." Special Agent Jennifer, who was leading the federal investigation, introduced herself to Maya. "Ms., your evidence gathering has been invaluable to our investigation. But you're right, that is escalating. We received word an hour ago that he's learned about the arrest warrants." "What does that mean?" Maya asked. "It means we need to execute those warrants immediately, before can flee or destroy evidence. It also means that you and your family need to be in protective custody until and his associates are in federal detention." Maya felt a mixture of satisfaction and concern. They had succeeded in building a case against, but the situation was now more dangerous than ever. "What about the students who helped gather evidence?" Maya asked. "If knows about the investigation, he might retaliate against them." Agent nodded. "We're arranging protection for all of the witnesses. Sarah and her friends are being moved to safe locations until the arrests are complete." "And Chad?" "Chad will be arrested along with his father. The evidence you gathered shows that he was an active participant in the family's criminal enterprise, not just a spoiled teenager." Maya felt a sense of closure. Chad would finally face consequences for his bullying, and his victims would be protected from retaliation. Over the next several hours, Maya and her family waited at the base while federal agents,